We are morally responsible for taking care of the planet. And that means all the creatures that are in it.
What is happening to life on Earth?
It's catastrophic. This is climate-related extinction.
The future of 1 million species is in jeopardy. Is there anything we can do to stem the tide?
They need to survive.
Because life on Earth is in trouble. My name is David Schechter.
It's quite a view.
And I'm your guide on a journey to see how we're changing the Earth.
Definitely seeing changes.
And how the Earth is changing us.
That's amazing.
This is On the Dot.
Okay, well, here we go. Por la señal de la Santa Cruz, de nuestros enemigos, líbrame, Señor.
It's always been a town of artists and rednecks and cowboys and writers and musicians, and I only got stabbed once, but it was by a good friend, actually.
And who hasn't been stabbed once?
This is Bisbee in far southern Arizona, and it's where I met Reed Booth.
Cheers.
An old-timer at what is apparently the smallest bar in the state. In his 40 years here, he's noticed things have changed.
It's getting warmer in the winter, and unfortunately hotter in the summer. And I don't know what it foretells. I don't know what it forebodes.
While Reed worries about the future of climate change, this little guy has a story to tell about what's happening right now.
They're actually, I love them. They look like they're smiling all the time.
Dr. John Wiens is an evolutionary biologist at the University of Arizona. He studies Yarrow's spiny lizards.
Recently, I was taking data from one. I put my backpack down, crawls up on my backpack, and just starts eating ants off of it. So they're kind of they're strangely friendly lizards.
These lizards are under threat from warming temperatures. They can be found in several spots in southern Arizona where they live in cooler mountain habitats well above the hot desert floor. Because they can't take the heat down there, individual populations have been isolated from each other for millions of years in different mountain ranges. The ones in Bisbee on the Mule Mountains, there's been a continuous population here for 3 million years.
The one here around Bisbee is older than human beings.
Amazing.
By a large margin.
It's amazing.
Yeah. We anticipate that they're going to be entirely extinct here in the mules by next year, by 2025.
Next year.
They may be extinct already. We'll go up and we'll see. Everyone's got water. Okay, so we're starting here. We're about 6,000 feet, and we're gonna go up at least 7,100.
Okay. Is it bad that I'm already out of breath?
We'll take it easy.
I'm tagging along with Wiens on a 2-hour hike as he counts the lizards and documents how hotter temperatures are stressing them out.
This is some serious stuff.
Look, it's about to flatten out.
He says it's about to flatten out, but he's been saying that for an hour.
In 2014, Wiens and his colleagues could not find any lizards below 5,700 feet of elevation. Below that, it had just gotten too hot for them to survive. Then, 8 years later, Wiens went back.
That place where we found them at 5,700 feet, totally gone. So it's not like they're physically moving up.
Or they're just dying at the lower level.
They are dying at the lower elevation. The only place where we're still able to find them is at about 7,100 feet. So they're almost out of room.
The threat of extinction is a growing problem across the country. The main drivers are habitat destruction, invasive species, pollution, including climate change, and overharvesting. Endangered animals include the California condor, the largest flying bird in the U.S., with about 90 adults remaining in the wild. The majestic Florida panther, about 200 animals remain. And the massive North Atlantic right whale that roams the Atlantic Ocean, only 250 are left. A landmark report from the United Nations determined that 1 million species are threatened with extinction. And based on Dr. Weens' research, he believes that number is actually far higher, driven by the heat-trapping gases that come from our cars, our factories, and our power plants.
It's catastrophic. And we all have some, probably the worst part is that, we all, as human beings, kind of in the developed world, we all sort of have some responsibility for this.
What do you do to look?
We're gonna look on top of rocks here. A little sun is really helpful, but so they'll be out basking. They're very easy to find when it's a sunny day.
You don't feel like they're here, huh?
No.
So we need to go a little higher?
Yeah, so we'll go out there. If they're here, they ought to be on these rocks, on the top of these rocks here, catching the sun. Does not seem to be anyone here.
So we're at the top of this mountain, and basically they've run out of room.
Exactly. Some people call it an elevator to extinction.
Wow.
We'll need to confirm. You come back here at least a couple more times and confirm it. But it seems like this distinct lineage that's been separated for about 3 million years looks like it's gone now.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Is that disappointing to you?
Well, yeah, of course.
And even though we were able to get video of Yarrow's spiny lizards in other parts of Arizona, many of them are struggling too. Weens says the death of this local population around Bisbee shows us how climate change is quickening the pace of extinction. It's not only happening over centuries or decades, it's happening now. Ultimately, what's the story?
This is what the future is going to look like. This is climate-related extinction.
We are the only species on the planet that can consciously recognize their own environmental damage and repair it.
With only about 300 birds existing in the wild, the Puerto Rican parrot teeters on the brink of extinction, one of the most critically endangered birds in the world. The reason they're still around is because of the men and women of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service who breed the parrots here at the aviary.
It's 4:45 a.m. and this morning we're going to witness the release of the Puerto Rican parrot from captivity out into the wild.
I missed you from last time. I thought you was not coming.
¿Cómo está, chico?
When I'm old and I die, I said, I did something for my country. This is the way I think I'm contributing to my island.
Marisol Lopez Flores runs the Parrot Recovery Program, and she loves release days that only come once or twice a year when a flock of volunteers come to help out.
Okay, folks, we're gonna, ¿en inglés o español?
English.
Ay, caramba.
Sorry.
Está bien. Okay, we're gonna open the cage here in about 10 or 15 minutes. So everybody needs to be at their position.
Each bird, we have a frequency. Each bird has a unique number.
Marisol brought me to a rooftop to witness today's release. The parrots flying around the aviary right now are the birds that have been released over the years.
I didn't think we'd see this many birds. They're really active right now.
In Puerto Rico, massive deforestation is what pushed the parrot towards extinction. When birds lose their habitat, often to land development, it limits where they can live, find food, and raise their young. Research from Cornell University found since 1970 a loss of 2.9 billion adult birds in North America, a decrease of almost 30%. Some of the hardest hit birds are the most common, like the wood thrush, found across the eastern U.S. 6 out of 10 have been lost. The Baltimore oriole, also an eastern bird, 2 in 5 are gone. And the western meadowlark, prevalent in the central and western U.S., 3 out of 4 have died off.
I had wanted to be a wildlife biologist ever since growing up in rural western Tennessee.
Tom White has been working here since the early 90s, helping to reestablish the wild bird population. He remembers when Hurricane Maria made landfall in Puerto Rico, it killed 3,000 people, causing historic floods and landslides. Researchers found Maria's extreme rainfall was 5 times more likely because of climate change, making supercharged hurricanes a major threat to the parrot's survival.
It's the worst natural disaster I have ever experienced in my life.
Before the storm hit, the captive birds were rushed inside a concrete shelter. Tom took this video while he and his wife rode out the storm, caring for the parrots.
And then late that afternoon, we were able to actually open the door and go outside. And we were speechless. They went from being green and lush to brown and defoliated in the question of hours.
But there was nothing for them to eat.
All the vegetation was gone.
The vegetation was completely gone.
The birds inside the hurricane shelter all survived, but crews just couldn't get to the wild birds out in remote spots in the jungle with enough time to rescue and feed them. On this end of the island, of the 56 birds in the wild, this is the only parrot that lived.
I'll admit I had a couple times I just cried because you see 20 years of work and progress, and then it's wiped out in less than a day.
Since Maria, they've been rebuilding the program, but with a twist, encouraging the parrots to nest much closer to the aviary so they can be rescued in a future emergency. And that effort starts here. Right now, it's breakfast time. Feeders have been set up outside the enclosure to encourage the birds to leave it. Each bird is wearing a tracking collar with an antenna that will eventually break off.
Are they just going to shoot out of the cage when the door opens?
No, we're hopefully not. What we'll do is this is called a soft release. We open the door before the sunrise, and after the door is open, we just allow them to just fly whenever they want.
Very casual, huh?
Exactly.
A couple of brave birds are already curious, taking cautious steps towards that outside feeder.
They have their individual personalities.
Yeah.
Some of them are more bolder and aggressive than others. Some of them are a little bit more shy.
How do you feel about a day like today when you know that these birds are going out?
Well, this is what we work for. That's like the success for us. That's the biggest success. Then when we put them in that fly cage, it's just like a mom just leaving their son in university.
Yeah.
It's just like, bye.
Bye.
We'll see you. Hopefully you'll be fine.
And look, some of the parrots are now eating their first meal outside their enclosure and taking off to join their friends on the outside, becoming wild birds.
In our journey, we can see extinction and its pace, and it's going faster, and how climate change impacts that. But I've been wondering, is this a problem that we can fix?
We can't fix everything. So you have to focus on something. If you try to save everything, then your actions and resources become so dissipated that you fix nothing. For instance, the Puerto Rican parrot. By protecting the habitat for species like that, at the same time, you protect habitat for lots of thousands of other species that also depend on that habitat. And by doing so, you protect the world for many others at the same time.
Do you feel like you've made a contribution?
I hope so. I hope so. That's why I get up every day and come to work.
I think the efforts that they're making to protect that endangered species and bring it back shows that as humans, we can try to repair some of the damage we've done.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Whoa. Okay, I think I'm up. I think I made it. Careful, do not go backwards.
This is the part where I get really nervous about you. Very nervous.
Forests are on the front lines in the fight against extinction and a place of refuge for animals like the parrot, but also plants and people.
You know what's so cool about sitting next to a waterfall is that I think you can't think. You can always just be.
Places like this are medicinal to the soul, to the heart, and you belong to nature.
Yeah.
You have to come to these places to heal yourself.
Do you think you could adopt me?
Yes.
I want to come live here with you.
Park Ranger Victor Cuevas and volunteer Michelle Lopez Lorenzo are taking me to see the tabanuco tree. It has grown here for centuries in El Yunque National Forest.
We know the tabanuco as the most majestic tree of the Puerto Rican flora.
And Victor is telling me the sap of the tree has medicinal qualities.
Take a pinch of the most transparent.
This is newer sap, huh?
That's enough.
That's not very much.
Try it.
Okay. It's like very herbal.
Not any feeling of
I'm starting to lose the feeling in my tongue right now.
That's what it is.
My whole mouth is now getting numb.
Yeah.
So this is, if you have a cavity, if you have a toothache, this was and is the traditional way one of the many traditional ways to remedy that.
It also tastes wonderful.
The tabanuco has long been used in traditional folk medicine, but new research suggests its value as a pharmaceutical is largely untapped, and that the class of trees it belongs to have potential in the therapy or management of diverse cancers, cardiovascular, and neurological diseases. In fact, the World Health Organization says about 10% of our most basic medicines originated in plants, like aspirin from the willow tree, morphine from the poppy, and quinine to fight malaria. The reason the tabanuco, with all its potential, still exists today is because of conservation. The tree was heavily logged in Puerto Rico's past, but not in this forest. El Yunque, the only rainforest in the National Forest System, is protected from development. What I'm learning is that conserving a wild place like this preserves everything in it, including the possibility of developing medicines we don't even know about today.
The only way that the people who are experts in this are going to be able to study these trees is if there's a healthy, abundant population.
They
is
still
the
have to
only
be
way.
here, right?
Yeah, they still have to be here, because if we only have one and we know how important it is, well, what good does that do? We need to have abundance of all of these really important plants.
Medicines are not the only benefit we get from the forest. Tropical forests like El Yunque are particularly helpful in the fight against climate change. Scientists call them carbon sinks because they absorb more carbon than they release. In fact, they lock away a quarter of all carbon dioxide stored on land. But their ability to keep doing that may be in jeopardy.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Tana.
David.
Nice to meet you in
Nice
person.
to meet you. We are going up into the forest to this scientific site where they're measuring what would happen in the forest during a warmer climate.
I've always wanted to study tropical forests. I still remember the first time I visited one and the awe that I felt.
Tana Wood is a research ecologist, and to study how well forests hold their carbon, she designed an experiment that required her to string high voltage lines into the forest.
So originally, we really wanted to do the whole forest. But then we did the calculation for the power. That was $13 million a year in energy.
Not energy, even just energy.
Just energy. And so we didn't do that.
What she did do was install those black panels, which are electric heaters. 24/7, they're warming up this plot of the jungle by 7 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the upper limit of how much warmer it could be on Earth by 2100 if we keep emitting carbon dioxide like we are now. We've experiment was interrupted by Hurricane Maria, and ever since, the plants in the heated section have struggled to recover. Dead leaves, stunted growth.
This looks totally different. It's not as high, it's not thriving in the same way, is it?
We have begun to notice that the forest has become shorter and shorter as time has gone on. And so you can visibly see that the forest is experiencing stress under these conditions.
Her team makes hundreds of measurements, recording the growth of plants, looking underground at the health of the root system. And this device records how much carbon the soil is releasing.
So after 1 year of warming, we saw a major increase in the amount of carbon dioxide that was coming out of these soils. The fluxes were so high in these warmed areas that we didn't believe that they were real.
What she's found is that the warmer the jungle gets, the more carbon it releases. That would mean what was once a sink, storing a quarter of the world's carbon, in the future becomes a source of carbon, accelerating the rate of climate change.
So what happens in these ecosystems has far-reaching consequences for the climate as a whole.
I think what we've learned is that there are things we can fix. There are ways to protect endangered species. There are ways to conserve really important places, but also there's things we can't fix. And there are a lot of things that are going to be lost.
The challenge now is to save as much as we can before it's too late.